Good evening, Vacaville. This is the regularly scheduled City Council meeting for the City of Vacaville for August 27, 2024 at 6 p.m. Have a roll call.
Council Agency Authority Member Stockton.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wiley.
Here.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Ritchie.
Here.
Mayor Chair Carly.
Here. If you are able, please stand for a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Well, good evening, Vacaville, on this August evening. With that, Mr. City Manager, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're going to remove item 6G from the agenda tonight. Other than that, that's it.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, we're motion and second to this agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Approval of minutes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion, second. All right, Vice Mayor with a second. All in favor? Aye. Question? Okay, all right, no question for now. All right. With that, we will move on to the presentations. We have a presentation and a proclamation tonight. This is in honor of the Utilities Administrative Manager Ramiro Jimenez and his retirement. But I will say that for me, it's been a pleasure to work with Ramiro. Ramiro, he and I worked in the police department for years. And sometimes what you realize within local government, there's positions that can lateral from one department to another. And you left us in the police department, but you were in good hands in moving over to another department and taking up other leadership roles. So with that, I'm not sure if you had anything. Are you having, it won't come up? Well, while we're waiting, if something were to come up, Ramiro, will you come forward? Of course, as we're all, yeah, you can come up to the podium. I'm going to ask you to share in just a minute, but I'd like to go ahead and read this. Whereas we're here today to recognize and celebrate Ramiro Jimenez's retirement and his over 27 years of outstanding service to the city of Vacaville. Whereas Ramiro began his career within Vacaville September 16, 1997, when he was hired as a management analyst in the police department after having served as an administrative analyst with the city of Sacramento since January 1st of 1991. In his role as the hiring and training manager for the Vacaville Police Department, Ramiro facilitated multiple recruitments, hirings, and promotions of multiple sworn and civilian personnel, several of whom currently serve on the department's leadership team, and was also instrumental in a lot of my promotions too. So thank you. I'd like to think something went well. Whereas Ramiro served on an interim basis and on assignment in the Human Resources Department, assisting with class specifications, labor relations projects, and citywide recruitments. He's participated in the hire and or promotion of over 200 past or present employees, including 4 current department heads and a member of the City Council. Well, I guess there it is right there. Hadn't gotten that far in the proclamation. Whereas on October 16, 2009, Ramiro transferred to the Utilities Department to serve in a similar capacity and to assist on several major projects, including the Easterly expansion and the tertiary projects. And whereas Ramiro was promoted to the position of Utilities Administrative Manager on November 16, 2014, and in addition to assuming the responsibility for the administrative services team and department budget, has served as the city's water conservation coordinator and facilitated the city's efforts to efficiently use and conserve water over the past 10 years, including through 2 major droughts and multiple seasons of dry conditions. And whereas after 27 years of positively impacting our community and staff through the performance of his duties in a professional, compassionate, and responsible manner, reflecting his commitment and dedication to our core values, Ramiro will be retiring from the City of Vacaville effective September 14th, 2024. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John Carley, Mayor, on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, do hereby proclaim September 14, 2024, Ramiro Jimenez Day in the City of Vacaville, and honor him for the faithful and dedicated services that he has performed over the past 27 years, with our best wishes for continued success and happiness in the future. Congratulations. I'd like you to share a few words if you have the floor.
Somebody want to set the watch? No, I do promise to try to be brief. I want to share for those who may be interested on the department heads at the time that they were hired or promoted. That would be account clerk Jessica Walling, who you know better now as Jessica Bowes. It was management analyst Brian McLean, associate civil engineer Justin Cole, police officer Ian Schmutzler, who we hired from the Oakland Police Department, and of course, police officer John Carley. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I really appreciate this recognition and honor, and I want to thank the people who helped with this, Chiefs Mike Cook and all my supervisors and leaders all the way through. Utilities Director Justin Cole. I want to thank all of the city managers, John Hanson, all the way through Aaron Bush, and to all of the city councils who have just provided support and leadership for all these years. And I would be remiss, which is why I have this handwritten note, if I didn't thank my wife of all her support and understanding and flexibility, because I put in a lot of long nights in terms of service to the city. And there was some nights here, Sunday nights, when Melinda Stewart and I would be the last people standing. And so it's 12 o'clock midnight on the Sunday night when we should be basically at home with our families, and instead we're here doing our service. So it's been a minute since you and City Clerk Michelle Thornbrew and I have hung out in the old police department, but it's been a heck of a ride. And so it's a unique opportunity to be able to serve the community in which one lives. And I've seen, having worked with just about every single department, that it's really the city employees that make it go and that are such a special part of and what makes our city such a great place to live. And I have had my time to work with the men and women who wear the badges. They get the attention and they get the praise, and sometimes, and frankly, quite unfairly, they get the criticism. But it's really a privilege to having worked with them. But I've also get to see the people who turn widgets, who dig trenches, who lay pipe, who repair streets, who mow lawns, who run programs, who crunch numbers, who hire and train people, who ensure that water goes in and out of our homes without us having to think about it. And most importantly, those people who just lend an empathetic ear to our members of the community when they're looking for help and when they're looking for a solution to their problems. And this is what makes up the great team that we are at the City of Vacaville. So as a private citizen, I'm going to continue to be very appreciative of all those individuals, as I know you are, and that you'll continue to support them, and you can be assured of my support, that we'll continue to support this great team. And just for allowing me to be a small part of that for these last 27 years, I thank you very much. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
You know, it's always special when you can honor the service of our employees. And while there's so many that do come through the city on staff and move around, because I look at so many in the audience and say, okay, you worked in the police department. In other areas, they started somewhere else and They move around the city, and they become very much an integral part of how local government works and works well together. You get the experience from one department and the ability to communicate with the public in ways that just makes us better. And I, for one, wish you the very best. And I know on behalf of the council and all of the staff, you'll be missed. Hopefully what you'll do is you'll find something to enjoy your time, and you never know where service takes you. But it's been a privilege and a pleasure to work with you all these years. So, all right. So with that, we will move on. And item 6 is the consent calendar. We know that we pulled item G off. So does any member of the council or the public wish to pull an item that's A through H minus the item G? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent calendar?
We have a motion, and Chapman, you second it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So we'll move on from the consent calendar. And this takes us to the business from the floor. This is a time for the public to address the council on any item that's within our jurisdiction, but not on an item that's going to be in front of us tonight. So with that, I will open it up. Good evening.
Good evening. It's grouchy old man time. What I'm about to mention today, I've mentioned to a few council members in individual conversations before, and I think it's something that needs to be considered. Okay, I've been to numerous presentations about, when developers come to the city about we need to hurry up and develop, the East Solano plan, yeah, that too. But, the east of Leisure Town and all this, and there's always this big rush to push through this project because we need more housing, And I'm wondering if there's any consideration given to the fact that over 15% of Vacaville's population is above age 65. And this number is growing every year because the leading edge of the baby boomers turned 78 this year. The last of the baby boomers, those born in 64, are going to turn 65 in another 6 years. But my point is this: people like me are reaching their expiration date. Does anyone consider what an extra 15% worth of housing is going to do to the availability of housing in Vacaville? I wonder if that's been considered, because time will tell, but the amount of available housing is going to increase every year with the amount of those people who, somewhere around their mid-80s, we time out. Just something you should consider when next time a developer comes to throw a pitch.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close business from the floor. All right, might have to be a little faster looking for what's next. If anyone else is wishing to speak, I would appreciate that you would move into a position so that we can not delay. So, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and fellow residents of Vacaville. My name is Clark Guglielmone. I've been a lifelong resident of Vacaville and a member of our local 3501 for 15 years, and I'm intimately familiar with our department's fleet. I'm here tonight to share my concerns about its current and future state. Last August, the Matrix Consultants Group completed a study of our fleet highlighting critical needs and recommending vehicle replacement. The study revealed a $5.28 million backlog of apparatus, advised an annual budget of $1.25 million to keep our fleet within its life cycle. Unfortunately, we have not taken sufficient financial action, and we lack the manpower to adequately maintain our fleet. This summer, I'm embarrassed to say that our ambulances often transported patients without functioning air conditioning. We've even had to downstaff ambulances due to a lack of serviceable vehicles. Our priority has been to fix air conditioning issues first in ambulance patient compartments, then in engine cabs, and lastly in our ambulance cabs. Right now, more of our Type 1 engines lack air conditioning than have it. As a matter of fact, our crews were responding to emergencies with Ziploc bags of ice on their heads. Our fleet is in poor condition. Every piece of apparatus has multiple open work orders, and many have missed maintenance intervals. We've had to ignore warning lights, keeping vehicles in service so long as they can run, pump, and stop. This is risky and unsustainable. We hired a fire equipment supervisor over a year ago, and he has been working tirelessly, often 7 days a week. However, he has no one to assist him, and the garage is too stretched to help. The situation is unsustainable and is placing an enormous burden on our existing staff. To address these challenges, I propose that we take decisive action to revitalize our fleet and simply follow the recommendations provided by the consulting group. First, all 7 of our ambulances will reach the end of their reliable service life by 2026. Purchase to acquisition for ambulances is 2 years. We currently have 3 on order. We need to order 2 additional ambulances costing $388,000 each, and plan to repower 2 more to save costs, bringing our total ambulance fund request to $1.4 million. Second, we need to replace our aging Type 1 engines. Lag time from purchase to acquisition is 4 years. By 2028, 5 will reach the end of their service life. We have 2 on order, but we need to purchase 2 more Type 1 engines at $1.3 million each, and 1 pre-owned engine as a stopgap for $550,000. This brings the total need for Type 1 engines to $3.33 million. Third, we need to replace 2 Type 5 Wildland engines, each costing $390,000, totaling $780,000. Purchase to acquisition for Type 5 engines are 3 years, and both are already past their service life. Fourth, 2 command vehicles need replacement, totaling $220,000. Lastly, with the upcoming decommissioning of our 32-year-old Rescue 71, we need a replacement dedicated light and air unit costing $544,000. In total, we need about $5.5 million to bring our fleet up to a serviceable condition. I urge the City Council to review the Matrix Consulting Group's recommendations, understand our fleet's true condition, and take swift action to ensure that we can continue to serve our community effectively and safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, I will go ahead and close business from the floor, and we will move on to public hearings. And we have none, so we will be moving on to 9A business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This first item before you tonight is a presentation and acceptance of the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce's annual progress report. Don Burris is going to kick it off for us, along with Representatives Debbie Egidio from the Chamber.
Good evening, Debbie. It's on. I got it.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. Don Burris here, Director of Economic Development Services. Happy to be sitting next to Debbie Egidio as we're about to present to you the Chamber's annual report. So this evening, the Council is being asked to accept and approve the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce Program of Work, their annual progress report, and also authorize the payment of the annual membership and services fee of $60,000. Approval of this action will allow the Chamber, in partnership with the City of Vacaville, to continue to support the Chamber and the City's efforts to maintain a healthy local economy. The City and Vacaville Chamber of Commerce have a long history of working together in partnership to support and execute the City's economic development efforts. As a part of the Big Four Economic Development Partnership, many of the projects that have been completed in partnership between both organizations have served a community-wide benefit. So this evening, the Council will receive a presentation that highlights the successful programs offered over the past 12 months. And at this time, happy to turn over the presentation to Debbie Egidio, President and CEO of the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Dawn, and good evening, Mayor, City Council members. It's a pleasure to be here for our annual report, and I do mean that because this partnership is important, not just for the Chamber, but for the city, for our businesses, and for our citizens as well, as we work all towards a prosperous environment for us all to live in. On the first screen there, I just want to point out something in our core values that I think is really important. Chamber gets talked about a lot about membership and that we're about members, but we're really about all businesses. And you can see that in our core values is that we champion the interests of all businesses, making us a vital resource and essential to the community that we serve. Thanks. The Chamber is a 501c6 nonprofit organization. We have a volunteer board of directors. We also have a large volunteer force in our ambassadors, which I'll talk about in a minute. But our current membership is hovering around 480 businesses right now. That goes up and down, of course, as the time fluctuates. But what's wonderful, I think, is that we represent all kinds of businesses. Everything from independent home-based businesses to entrepreneurs just starting out, to nonprofits, to small businesses, to some of our largest employers in the city, including the city, actually. And you'll see that in that pie chart there, that it just gives a kind of quick overview of all the different categories of businesses and the cross-section that are members of the Chamber, but really reflective that we're not just in one piece of pie. We're in a lot of pieces. And I think it's important also to note that just like the number of businesses in the city, the membership in the Chamber is about 85% small businesses, so 15 employees or less is how we qualified that. And that's roughly mirrors the business makeup for the city as well. So the Chamber works quite a bit on committees. What's wonderful about our committees is that they're open to all members. This isn't just committees of our board or committees of high-level invested members. This is open to every member that has an interest in serving and being part of what we do. Ambassadors are volunteer force. We'll shout out to Kaya Lute in the audience, who was our chief ambassador for several years and is here in support, even as she turns over into new ventures in her life. We have a business issues and advocacy committee that meets every month, and I just want to, Dawn's been part of that, but I also want to say thank you to Barbara Carr, because Barbara's been participating in that, and it's really an opportunity for the businesses and the people participating in the committee to get a connection with our economic development department, and the information that's exchanged there is really beneficial, I think, in both directions. We have business resources committee. That's really everything related to education. Did you want to add in? No. Okay. Everything related to education. It's our leadership program. It's Lemonade Day. It's our scholarship program, and just generally resources for our businesses. And I'll get into that a little bit as we go. Fundraising, events, and membership, fairly self-explanatory. Young professionals of Solano. We are now of Solano, not of Vacaville, even though this is a committee housed under the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce. The opportunity to broaden our networks and to find commonalities up and down the county with other chambers has been really beneficial for us to expand with this group. We also work with the Fairfield-Sassoon Chamber of Commerce on the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee. That's a joint committee of our two chambers. So again, more partnerships that we work so that we can accomplish more than we might be able just to by ourselves. And then we do have a PAC. Our PAC will get involved in the election cycle, which is now, and we will be hosting candidate forums coming up in a couple weeks. We also, I should point out that the PAC is completely separate from the chamber. There's no commingling of funds, membership dues, your service agreement fee, none of that goes to PAC activities. That is completely separate, kept separate, and funded separate, reported separate, all of the stuff that we need to do. Okay. So our membership income snapshot, our growth has fluctuated in the last few years because we're really at the mercy of the economy and of what's happening for our businesses. And so you'll see our graph there, the orange one, mirrors a lot what was happening. That low point was COVID, 368 members at that point. That's when, because of business decisions and all kinds of other things impacting businesses, that trickles down to us as well. We reached a little peak last year. We had a membership drive, and then some of those members do drop off after the first year. That was totally anticipated and planned for, but we're still at a healthy, robust 489 as our last count. So right around that 480. We're looking at getting back over 500 this year too. Our income snapshot for you, you can see that 55% of our income, 57, excuse me, is based on membership. So that is still a big part of what we do. It is our mainstay. We are a membership organization. But beyond that, our events and programming contributes quite a bit. That's our fundraising events, the city services agreement that we're discussing tonight. We do have ARPA funds. ARPA funds are reimbursable funds, so they're based on our activities and the programs that we get done. So those are directly, those fluctuate just on the activity level. A lot of that is shop local, and we'll get into that at the end. And then we get a small administrative fees for different things, managing traffic, managing the grant that Solano EDC had recently for businesses, and other small things. But we're constantly looking to diversify our income so that we can be self-sustaining and not have all our eggs in one basket. The city services contract is basically divided into 5 areas, and you'll see those on there, and I'll go through each one as we move on. So promoting and supporting local business, saddened that this is our last year, but it is happening this year, our partnership with Genentech. They have been such generous supporters to our business community. They do what's called Genen Dollars every September. They give Genen money to their employees that they can go out and spend at businesses that the chamber has vetted to be part of this process. And then the businesses get reimbursed. Last year, that was $17,000 into our local economy. This year, the baseline that Genentech predicts is $18,000, and it'll probably be a little bit more than that by the time this is over. But sadly, it'll be our last year as Genentech moves on as well. We do quite a bit of marketing, whether that's in print, through our own magazine, through our social media, our digital e-blasts. I hope you're all following the chamber. Again, that is not just for members, it's for anyone, any citizen that wants to know what's happening and what we're working on. Lots of ribbon cuttings, really exciting one recently out at Security Public Storage out on the highway there. And those murals becoming part of our public art program is just fantastic for that part of town because it brings really an entranceway, gateway to that we didn't have yet. And I think we're good for the next slide. Professional networking and connecting, we do a lot of that. That's what a lot of people become involved in the chamber for, is that networking opportunity. I mentioned TRAFC. We have a restaurant alliance that is industry specific for our food and beverage partners and has been really kind of up and down on that committee, but also every time we meet, some business comes out with a good connection and something that helps them advance their business. So even if it's 1 or 2, then it's doing the right thing. Talked about young professionals. They rebranded this year. The one thing that's unique about young professionals, or maybe isn't, but is special about them, is that they adopt a charity every year. So their efforts are not just about their professional development networking, it's about giving back to our community. And this year's charity is called Mama Bears Fighting Childhood Cancer. And the group provides care packets, basically everything from backpack size to wagon size, to give to families that are going through the tragedy of their child having cancer. And it's everything from earbuds to coloring books to favorite snacks to, I was told, even some canned margaritas for the parents that needed a break. So a little bit of everything in there. We do continue to have monthly mixtures. Thank you for when you attend. We really appreciate that. The community loves to see you out there, as you all know. And we also have our annual Night of Champions, where we celebrate all the business accomplishments, public servants, as well as our young professionals and ambassadors. Workforce development, we do a lot with Solano County Office of Education. We also have a scholarship foundation. This is a 501c3 branch of the chamber that is specifically for workforce scholarships. We have been growing that program every year. Last year, we were able to give 4 scholarships at $2,000 apiece, so $8,000 in scholarships that are really designed not for the traditional high school student that's graduating and going on to college. They're really for people getting back into the workforce that might need training, that might need equipment. You know, a lot of people, their kids grow and they're empty nesters and they need to get them back to work. So this is really, we look at those applications from that viewpoint. We do a lot with Solano Business Development Center, and they are a phenomenal resource for all the business trainings that they specialize in, which allows us to promote their efforts and not duplicate them. But they just got a flyer today, and it's amazing the work that they're putting out there. And then just a quick little, we had a close-ups and coffee. I think, Don, you participated in it a couple years ago when we did it. It was just a day to have your professional headshots done. And it sounds simple, but there were people doing business and exchanging cards. And just from that event, they were there to meet each other and get things done. Economic development, the big one why we're here, right, Don? So Don mentioned work with the Big Four, and what's great about that is we all have a different mission set, but we are finding ways to find common ground to promote businesses together through our different avenues. We also have done work with the EDAC, the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and helped with some of those programs getting put in place. One of the big things that's in our service agreement is to do small business retention and outreach, and we have been doing that through the last year, and we'll continue to do that, and I'll go into more detail when we get into this, but that is something that is really important. We do it every day when we talk to businesses, but we have a more formalized program with some surveys that we can get specific information to help the city with that. And then Launchpad was a new entrepreneurs event last year. We're making plans already for that again for November, and that's a partnership with the city and with SBDC. It's for entrepreneurship, both new businesses as well as existing businesses. And then the last one in economic development, if you have not looked at the Chamber's resources webpage, I encourage you to do so. One of I think the most beneficial pieces on that page is that we list available grants for businesses. And again, this is a page that's open to every business is not just a member access only. This is all businesses, and we update those about once a month, but there's just a wealth of information on that page. Okay. Information and outreach services. I want to say thank you to the mayor and our city manager for presenting our state of the city this year at the Movers and Shakers breakfast. Hopefully we'll be continuing that continuing that event as we go forward. Also, our business issues forums are held multiple times throughout the year. This is open forum for anyone to come and hear topics of interest. Our next one will be on September 11th, and actually Barbara's coming to give an update on the downtown specific plan. And this is another time slot that maybe if businesses or business owners couldn't attend the last couple of sessions that were in the afternoons, ours is a morning, so we're trying to help promote that activity as well. We also stay quite a bit abreast of what's going on at the state level in politics, and the trickle-down effect of some of those decisions are unbelievable for our businesses. So we're fortunate that the Cal Chamber has a strong advocacy and legislative group that follows that and then informs us, trickles down to the local chambers. But I've had local businesses call and say, hey, this is impacting my business. Can you call up the chain and down the chain? So we do get involved in that, as well as our local politics and staying abreast of issues and supporting those that meet with our advocacy guidelines. So looking forward, we were really excited. This is a little look back, a little look forward. We're continuing our Leadership Vacaville program. This will be year 2 after we had a hiatus for a while. We had a great program this last year. It runs from October to June. Thank you. Many of you participated. We did a mock city council meeting. That was quite a bit of fun for the participants to learn your job. And they had a wealth of information that came out of that, and I see that steamrolling already. The participants from this past year, their businesses are again supporting with new employees coming through the program. We're at 6 applicants so far. We're looking to get to 15, so we're on a good shot for something starts in October. I talked about the business retention and outreach plan, and like I said, we had done some surveys already in this last year, which was part of our service agreement, but we're going to expand that a bit. We're going to do a couple of digital surveys so our reach can get out there, because physically we can only get to so many businesses in person, so hopefully we can gather that same type of information and then provide us with some follow-up that we could go back out to. Again, I mentioned our business issues and advocacy committee that Barbara and Don participate with. And then new this year, and working with Don, we're looking at a business ombudsman program. And I believe that's in the downtown's objectives as well. And so we can they have the downtown core and we have the rest of the city.
That is correct. That was part of the direction from the city council in our strategic plan. And the city manager has authorized us to start the work to begin putting together what we're calling our business concierge program. Mm-hmm. We're hoping to roll that out first in the downtown and then make it a citywide program.
Thank you. So with that, even though we have different geographic areas, I am anticipating that our programs will mirror each other so that they will seem seamless, just a matter of getting to target businesses in different areas. I mentioned Launchpad. That's our entrepreneurs event. We have that booked already for November 19th and 20th. That includes an Access to Capital Summit by SBDC, which I think was fantastic in this last year because they found a lot of non-traditional paths for especially small upcoming businesses to get funding. And of course, you all know Lemonade Day. I talk about it every year. But you've all been amazing supporters of that from your Measure M funds and all your district funds. And we had another outstanding year. And I think we should be proud we're only one of 6 cities in all of California that has that program in place. So it's pretty special that what we're able to do for our youth entrepreneurship. Slide got a little wonky. But I did want to really highlight Shop Local this year. Again, it might be a little hard to see on the slide, but the stats this year have been unbelievable. They're staggering. Our new businesses have gone from, in just July of last year to June of 24, from 60 to 106, which is a 76% increase. The new products went from 24 to 57, a 137% increase. The page views, the people looking at the site, went from 3,300 to over 14,600. That's a 341% increase. And new site users went from 1,500 to 6,600, up 331%. And I was in shock when I got those figures. Noelle Buckbound, our office, manages this program for all of us. And that's why I put the empirical numbers in there, because sometimes you report percentages and like, okay, did it go from 1 to 3? That's 300%. These really went from solid numbers up to even more solid numbers. So just think it really shows the value that you committed. These were ARPA funds, but committed to putting into managing and promoting this program and really helping our small businesses. So I thought that was amazing accomplishments this year, and I don't get to take a lot of credit for it. I give all the credit to our staff. So. And then I just wanted to point out our board of directors, a couple of them I know are in the audience. I don't know if others joined us, but I know Rosa Gracida from Pacifica Senior Living and Jennifer House, who is our business development professional working with SBDC, among many other things, are here. But I put the board in here just to let you see the diversity of the board. It goes from big businesses to small independent businesses to lots of industries in between. And we work to keep that diversity in the board each year when we get new members into it. And I think that's it. Are there any questions I can answer?
Well, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate the relationship with the chamber and especially trying to activate the businesses, especially the small businesses within our community. If you had to, it's that, that one question that it's like in your industry, you're ready. And that is it's always, what is needed? Is there a lack here that is, if you're informing the council and also the community, not only the need, but is there something that's hindering that you're positioned to see what's going on and how it affects the businesses? Anything come to mind?
Couple things, not necessarily unique to Vacaville, but businesses are continually struggling with workforce. I don't know how many stories I hear about, we had interviews set up and they just didn't even show up. So there's still, and that's just, I don't think there's a lot that can be done personally or any of us for that, but that continues to be a struggle for our businesses. I would say another thing I hear is that time is always of the essence, and the ease to which things can maybe get put through for businesses for permitting or even just modifications. And to be able to interpret things in a business-friendly way. I'm trying to be really careful how I respond to your question.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's always the challenge. You're trying to advocate for the business. You're trying to promote Vacaville. Shop local goes a long way, right? It's in maintaining that, but also making sure that we have the right businesses. It's the retention side also. Do we have the right mix of businesses in the right places? And so appreciate the work that is done from your perspective. So I know those are the kinds of questions like where do you start, but I appreciate that and all that you do. Councilmember Silva.
Yeah, no, thank you for the annual report. Obviously you mentioned workforce is a huge challenge across the board. I am really curious to see how our staff continue to look at ways to make our systems more approachable, more understandable, more accessible as we go through the years. So like whatever we can do to really embrace a continuous improvement process, get feedback from the key stakeholders, people who've been interested in trying to start a business, particularly how to sustain it, like I mentioned, different permitting process. Anything that we can do to streamline that. Like if I open a 10-page application compared to other cities that may have a 1-page application, like that's daunting. And it can be challenging on what we have to put in. So like the goal is to create opportunities for people to, start up a side business or, generate revenue. Most people are passionate about a certain skill set. Doing paperwork is not one of them, although it's something that's necessary to sustain a business. So I think I really appreciate that feedback from your leadership, from the community. I hear that across the board. The question I have kind of goes back to the Big Four. And so one thing that I've heard from different folks, different leadership through the past 4 years is maybe a lack of clarity, or sometimes there's some light competition, or maybe some type of conflict on who would focus on what. I'm curious to see, and you don't have to have an answer today, but I'm really curious to see if there be some type of overlying mission. So while each individual of each of the Big Fours has its own individual mission, I'm wondering if there would be value to restructuring that in that area from an organizational standpoint, where there's one mission for how we support our local economy, right? So what is that mission? And then each of the Big Fours carries out goals to support that overriding mission, if that makes sense from an organizational standpoint. So that's my question, not just to you, but to all those that I know gathered together and talk about how we best support each other and ultimately keep our local economy going. So.
Yeah, I think the overriding mission is economic development. So that's probably an easy one we can find common ground on. It's just which pieces do we do? And I want to go back to your earlier comments that we talked about. Our business concierge program is something that will address that 10-page application. Will be able to help point people in the right direction. And we're also in the process of updating and reprinting How to Start Your Business in Vacaville guidebook.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and part of that we're going to add, it's not in it right now, but we are going to add a little description of what each of the Big Four does so that people know who to turn to for different things. And then we're also going to print that in Spanish as well.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate the launch pad and obviously love the Lemonade Day. So thank you.
For the audience, explain the Big Four.
Big Four, City of Vacaville, Visit Vacaville, Downtown Business Improvement District, and the Vacaville Chamber. And again, we're all common ground of economic development and focused on downtown, citywide tourism, and everything on Don's plate.
Super stakeholders. That's right. There's others, but appreciate the work that the Big Four does. Councilmember Stockton.
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to say how appreciative I am how well you humanize all of these local businesses, and that it's not just the stores that happen to be in Vacaville, but the people and the passion that each individual or their family has in having their business open. And we're grateful that it's in Vacaville. But I think the activity and the services that you're providing and continue to provide have made it so apparent how many lives we are impacting. And I know that that's what the chamber exists for, but I just wanted to say you're doing a great job. You have a great team of people. You have some incredible chamber members. And I have never gone to an event where I didn't connect with somebody who wasn't willing to help someone else out or provide some sort of guidance or service to help people be successful. So I just think you're doing a great job. You're one of the legs to the Big Four, right, to that table. But I think that you have really managed to capture the heart and soul of so many incredible people that do business in Vacaville. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's amazing to be connected to this organization. So.
Open it up to the public for any comment on this. Although I see a lot of board members, you've done all the speaking, but it's good to see a lot of the members that make it all happen. It really does make it a unique place to see all the support that does come out to the local businesses, and we try to attend as much as we can because it does serve our economic development. So I'll go ahead and close it and bring it back. There is 3 items
Yes, Mayor. There is a recommendation for the council by simple motion, accept the 2023-2024 Chamber of Commerce Annual Progress Report, approve the 24-25 Chamber of Commerce Program of Work, and authorize payment of the membership and services fee agreement in the amount of $60,000.
Yeah, thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Stockton motion, and we have a second with Roberts. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Of course not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's make this successful and continue the good work. So thank you. We'll move on to item 9B, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item before you is a resolution initiating a general plan change to the land use designation of Parcel M in the Roberts Ranch specific plan area. Albertino and Aaron Morris from our Community Development Department are here with the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Item before you tonight is the Roberts Ranch Parcel M General Plan Amendment Initiation. It's a request to change the general plan map designation for this parcel in Roberts Ranch from schools to residential load medium density, which allows for 5.128 units per acre. On the map on the right shows a location of where that parcel is with a greater boundary of Roberts Ranch shown in black and the individual villages shown surrounding that area. Recapping what this project looks like, the site itself right now is designated as schools in the general plan, which allows for private and public institutions as well as elementary, junior high, and high schools. The zoning is public facilities, which allows for schools also as a permitted use. Parcel M is 16.42 acres. It was originally designated for a school site for 9 through 12 grades. And so what's before us, what was submitted to the city was a request to change the designation of the 16.42 acre site, mainly for this idea of putting a high school at this location. Kairos Schools owns the property to the north in Brighton Landing, and they purchased this property, and what they're looking at doing is converting the 3.65 acres for a high school component, but they'd like to take the remainder 12.77 acres and use that to entitle that property and then sell the remainder to help fund other components of the school development. And what they're looking at doing is creating 82 single-family lots for residential development. Again, this is intended to provide funding for a master plan for the remainder of their campus development. This project was originally presented to the City Council on May 28th, and during that meeting, there were many items that were discussed that's identified on the screen and that are elaborated in the staff report, such as whether or not this would add to the regional housing needs allocation, how the amenities and the joint use would work with the city, as well as what would be the effects on the existing Kairos wait list. The comments that were received from council at that time was that there was interest in pursuing different housing types, and the housing, there was interest for housing for different socioeconomic groups. At the end of that meeting, the council voted 4-3 to continue the item to allow the applicant to explore alternatives and work with city staff to look at different housing types and densities beyond just the standard single-family homes that are within Bright Landing, within Roberts Ranch already. Since that time, the city received a response from the applicant, and that's also included in the staff report. The response largely identifies their desire to maintain consistency with what the original vision was for the Roberts Ranch development, which is predominantly single-family detached homes. They did identify that they were agreeable to including accessory dwelling units within their product. To do an accessory dwelling units could be an attached or a detached product. The thing to note about that is that it could be 500 square feet or more if it were included as an attached or detached product within that development. Some other aspects that staff felt it was important to kind of note as part of this discussion while City Council is considering this accessory dwelling unit. We looked at the original specific plan and looked at what state law. So for the conversation, it should be noted that state law currently allows accessory dwelling units or junior accessory dwelling units to be built on homes that have single family lots. They can be built on multifamily lots also. And so that's currently allowed by state law. There's a ministerial process where anybody can come to the building counter and obtain those. we found that when you look at the Roberts Ranch specific plan, that goes a little bit one step further. Anybody can do it, but they don't have to. In Roberts Ranch, there is a specific requirement for home builders. If you have a development that has a lot of 6,000 square feet or more, you must provide a model version that has an optional ADU. So that's something that we observed that we wanted to make sure that the council was aware of, that that specific plan already requires home builders to incorporate an optional ADU within that. Currently, what we found was that home builders are currently doing that in Roberts Ranch. We did a quick check and we found that there were 34 permits that had been issued for ADUs. So that area currently has ADUs being built out there. When we looked at the plan that was provided by the developer, we also found that it's possible that some lots might be too small to accommodate the product type. There were a mixture of lots. There might be some corner lots or some internal curvature lots that might be a little bit larger that could accommodate them, but there were also a lot of smaller lots that may not be able to accommodate that product type as a detached product or even an attached product. Ultimately, what we observed was that further analysis would be required for this particular aspect. As noted from the last meeting, there are some benefits and alternatives to consider. The benefits that staff observed about this was that it has the potential to help Kairos obtain additional funding for the campus. There are some alternatives that the City Council could consider as part of this, such as different designations like residential medium density, which would yield a higher density of 8.1 to 14 units per acre, or medium high density of 14.1 to 20 units per acre. That kind of product type might look like small lot single family homes, attached single family townhome designs, or you might have product types of 2 or 3 units on one individual lot, multifamily development even possibly. Ultimately, the initiation action for this project doesn't mean that the project is approved. Further analysis would still be required for this. There are some next steps in this analysis if it's allowed to move forward. We'd have to take a look at whether or not the annexation in the Community Facility District number 11 would be capable for this project. We'd have to work with school district, with Kairos and the city to figure out how a joint use of agreement of those facilities, such as the gymnasium, would work with the city. We'd still have to work with Solana Irrigation District and figure out how infrastructure that's out there, whether or not it could support the additional units that are out there. Notification for the project was provided as outlined on the screen in front of you. We also provided additional notice for this particular meeting too, to all the residents within there. There are some next steps. If the City Council decides to initiate this request, staff would continue to work with the property owner and evaluate a whole host of land use entitlements that are identified on the screen. But if City Council decides not to initiate the request, the applicant would withdraw the application and any unused application funds would be refunded. With that, staff has a conclusion for City Council. We do support the initiation because it would support development of school facilities. It provides an opportunity to create more housing, and the initiation provides an opportunity to provide further analysis and evaluation of the project. For that, we have a recommendation for City Council that City Council would initiate the proposed general plan land use designation amendment that would change it from schools to residential low medium density. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions. The applicant and the property owner are also available.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and doing the follow-up work to get us to this point, and based on the council's comments and some of the questions that came out of that last discussion. At this point, I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions. Councilmember Silva.
Yeah, thanks for the update. So just trying to clarify. So a lot of this past 4 years, we've been talking about how we ensure there's more diverse housing options, right? And so in this particular case, I understand the situation where we have something that's zoned for school, purchased for a lower rate than what was offered to the Vacaville Unified School District. That was highlighted in the previous staff report when the item came up. So property owner in this case wants to sell the land to build up their current school site to serve their needs. In this particular case, you have the question really is, so that's the question in my mind that I'm trying to process is from a city council member's perspective, and the discussions we've been having exhaustively on housing and how we increase the diversification of housing. Does low medium density allow us to address those housing needs that we've been identifying and discussing for 4 years?
The property owner and the applicant may have their own perspective to offer, and I believe they plan to speak. From staff's perspective, the proposed general plan designation that's advanced by the applicant essentially proposes more of the same kind of housing that's in Roberts Ranch. And that's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, but it's the council gets to decide whether to initiate a proposal would basically be more of the same housing we have in Roberts Ranch or want something different.
Right, but so that's where, so we as a council have you all staff that help us sift through all the different policies on behalf of residents throughout the city of Vacaville on how we address the different needs. So like for this example, right? So if you have this particular lot, there's different housing options in general. It could be like apartment rentals, right? So like first, like most people want affordable housing. So what most people I don't think realize is that subsidy has to come from somewhere. Well, we don't have the funding, the subsidy is not coming from the state, and we don't have the funding internally. So then that, bless you. So that pretty much takes that one off a realistic option, right? So then the other alternative is market rate apartments. Well, to me, it doesn't make sense to put up on a market rate apartment that they're paying $3,000 plus a month for, that they could be paying for a mortgage, right? So if the goal is to increase, if the goal is to help folks increase wealth, and invest in property and invest in our community, what zoning would allow for that optimal price point to make more accessible, ownable units?
That's a question probably for a developer or someone who can run pro formas and figure out what's going to result in a lower sales price. The general thrust behind the idea of missing middle housing, which is something this council's discussed a lot, is that if new, particularly for sale development is comprised of smaller lots and smaller homes, that does tend to reduce the sales price and allow buyers who may not be able to buy those larger, more expensive homes to, instead of renting the $3,000 apartment, they can then buy that smaller home. So that's the argument. It's probably a planning argument. It's the argument for having developments incorporate a wide range of lot sizes, including really smaller lots and attached housing and that kind of thing.
So the other trade-off that the state has been implementing, or to make it more accessible, are the concept of accessory dwelling units, ADUs. So just to understand the staff report and what was presented, 34, was it, if that was right, 34 lots have been identified that there will be ADUs developed on those lots?
Of the homes that have been built in Roberts Ranch so far, 34 of them already have ADUs that were essentially selected by the buyer, built out by the developer, and then sold to the buyer.
But on this particular proposal, were there any identified lots that ADUs will go in?
The proposal that was provided in response to city council comments didn't identify specific lots and didn't have any guarantee that ADUs would be done. It just simply, the applicant was indicating that they would consider the idea of being able to accommodate ADUs on this area. So there's no guarantee that ADUs would be done on individual lots. I think the difference that we note with Roberts Ranch is that the requirements there for the home builders to provide the option, ultimately, there's no guarantee that they get built unless a home builder decides that they do want that larger ADU suite for maybe a larger family. This is the proposal that's in front of us kind of has that same idea, which is they'll take a look at the idea of whether or not they could do ADUs, but there's no guarantee that they could accommodate them.
Okay, so then I guess the question would be for the developers, what would be the lot size optimal to allow for ADUs? 6,000. How would that, okay, so 6,000, thank you all. How would that impact the prospects of this particular development proposal? If you increase the lot size to 6,000. So the argument in the past was we have to do this, otherwise it's not going to happen. right? So
Well, I think just, I'm gonna stop right here to
was
ask
the developer here?
questions.
There's a question.
I know, but there's a lot of lights on, and I've given you a lot of latitude to ask questions, and now you're moving around and you're making statements that we, the council, but there's differing opinions about things. So this is a time to ask questions, and then I'll ask the developer to come up and
Mayor, I
respond.
need you to clarify where I was incorrect on speaking on behalf of the council.
Well, no, I'm going to give the developer positions of questions. So right now you're asking the staff some questions right now.
Yes, and they weren't able to answer my question.
But there's going to be several questions. So what I'm going to do is have them be able to answer them in short order before I'd open up the public, because they're the ones that are asking for this merit hearing for the GPA. So
Fair enough. And can you please clarify where I misspoke on speaking on behalf of the council?
there's differing opinions as far as what we're trying to do here. They're your opinions. And so, and maybe others, but I'm just simply saying this was a time for questions. And now we're diving into opinions about it. So.
Okay, I will clarify my comment when it comes to that section. Thank you.
And I'll have them come forward to answer your questions, because I'm sure there'll be some more. Councilmember Wiley?
I also had a question about on slide 6 where it talked about the 34 ADUs, and you said out of the houses built on Roberts Ranch, and how many is that? Out of 500 or out of 200, or do you have an idea to those numbers? And also, to your point, having the ability to build an ADU and having one built are two totally separate things, because a lot of people choose not to spend that additional dollars at that time. And so I don't think that we can really count on, oh, this would solve any of our housing needs, because you could build an ADU on it. But so if you have that number, you could let me know.
Out of 285 building permits that have been issued, 34 have included ADUs.
285? All right. And then of the ones that we're looking at on this property, I know not all of them meet the threshold of 6,000 square feet, I don't believe. Some of them are, but not all of them are. So I don't know exactly how many 6,000 or more lots are in this piece. But my question is, looking at the map, why is the school property so large to start with? I mean, is that larger than normal? Is that a bigger piece than you could put an elementary school on and a parking lot? Or, because it does seem like there's a lot of property that is being offered for sale if we go ahead with this redo. So is this an unusually large piece of property for a school in a subdivision or not?
I don't know if it's unusually large. I can tell you that the context associated with each of those specific plans is that Bryant Landing identified the prospects of having an elementary school, and then I believe Robert Rance identified the prospects of a middle school. And so each of those demand different facility needs. At that time, when we were doing the planning process, we worked with Vacaville Unified School District to figure out what their needs were for the reservation of those school sites.
And then usually there's a school site and then an attached city park. But if the city park is already attached and up and going to this property, is this correct? It's north of it, or the city property is.
It's not necessarily usual that there's a city park attached to a school site, but in this case, there is a city park that's part of, adjacent to the school site.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking about Boxborough and Cambridge, and many other schools has a thing right next to it. All right, and so part of the property could be used for a daycare. Is that correct? If it's a school site, or is that not? Is a daycare commercial?
I wouldn't be able to verify whether it is.
Okay. Or outdoor classroom, or I just didn't know if there's any way that they could use a bigger footprint for the school and not add so many of the similar houses that we have. So that's what I didn't know. Daycare, outdoor classroom, how else could that be utilized? Is it necessary to sell the whole piece and add a chunk more of the same houses? So that's maybe they'll answer that when they have there. So those are the questions that I have right now.
Vice Mayor Ritchie.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm actually going to answer those questions. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Cairo School Board and all the members for being here, and the mayor of Roberts Ranch and all the effort working for a long time, coming back with the city to really find a way to make this work. I want to speak quickly about the Kairos and the need and necessity for the size of school. Kairos School is a new vision of how you can do schools. It is not your traditional school that are built where you have a track field, a football, basketball field. It's a new design. The usage of the plot of land doesn't need to utilize the full footprint that was made available by the previous developer. So the excess land, instead of just say we have it, let's just let it go feral, they're utilizing the land the best way purpose to help build the rest of the school and the project and fund something that we really need in our community. In District 2 in that side of town, Vacaville is very unique. It's an amazing city, but we have one gym. The gym's in the middle of the city.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Vice Mayor. Just in the interest of being able to get them to answer questions and move on, we'll have time to. Your points are well taken. But I'm just trying to limit it because
for previous role, I have a lot of passion and knowledge.
So,
but
any particular questions that can be addressed to staff, and then obviously I'm going to ask them.
No particular questions. I just, when it comes to looking at this project, utilizing the excess land that they're deeming with the plans of the city is not necessary, which was concurred the last meeting by faculty and legislators came here and said it's not going to compete. It's not going to be caught, but be a problem. The density of the property, I think, fits. The previous developers and people that bought the properties, they bought that property with the intent that their neighbors would have conformity and like properties. To change that dramatically, to go high density and really change the footprint of that community, I think would be a disservice to the people that already have bought in there. I do understand we have a great need to get housing, diversify housing. But when we look in the broader picture, this project is actually inside of a major master plan that we're doing right now with the city and the urban growth plan, that therefore we could then plan to make sure we provide medium and low and high density properties in the proximity that can serve our community and our housing needs. When it comes to this development, I really think going forward with the current plan, some of the lots are odd-shaped corners. Theoretically, they cannot have ADUs, but there is some traditional rectangle lots that are excess of 6,000, 9,000 square feet that could, if a person decides, could use ADU. I just really feel we should go forward. This project's going to allow that they can sell the property, get income, to really bring Vacaville something in that community that they need. Yes, they'll bring houses.
So again, what I want to do is get the questions out. So it sounds like we're discussing our beliefs and our positions. What I'd like to do is get to the questions and get to them.
I have no questions. I'm very passionate about it.
Okay. I appreciate that. Councilmember Stockton.
All right, I'll do my best to play Jeopardy and ask everything in the form of a question. I might know the answers to some of these, but I would like to confirm the answers and not presume. Are there diverse housing options being looked into for the east of Leisure Town development?
Yes.
Are there other locations throughout the city where high or medium high density projects could be rezoned or built currently?
Yes, and we have other sites that are planned for those housing types as well.
Is it the sole responsibility of Kairos to provide high density or subsidized housing for the city of Vacaville?
No.
Are there other options or places where we can implement some of those strategies for our housing element in Vacaville outside of this location?
Absolutely.
How many?
We did a housing inventory last year that we brought to council. We have a lot of housing units. A lot of them are actually, though, in that lower density category. We have less in that higher density category, and that's actually part of what was the genesis for the East of Leisure Town specific plan, is to get those higher density missing middle housing types planned.
So are there a significant amount of additional areas that we could implement subsidized high density or medium high density projects?
Not significant, no. We do have sites. We have sites that made our housing element compliant with state law. So we met the requirement of the state to plan sufficient housing to meet that.
Would we
that
still
mandate.
meet that requirement even if this was rezoned as it's currently being requested to be rezoned?
If this site stayed a school site, we'd still meet the requirement. If it gets rezoned, we meet the requirement. We've already satisfied the requirements on other sites citywide.
Did the city of Vacaville have anything to do with the sale of this educationally zoned property being purchased by Kairos?
I don't believe so. It's a private.
We had no
transaction.
role in whether they bought it or the school district bought it at all, correct?
Nope.
Okay, that's it.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yeah, just a couple of questions from when I was going through the staff report. Kind of mentioned it, whereas it says for Roberts Ranch for a specific plan. In the staff report, it says all lots over 6,000 are required ADUs. And I heard it is like required to offer ADUs, or is it required to build ADUs?
Required to offer ADUs to prospective buyers. They're not required to
like
build
in the
them.
staff report, it says required to build ADUs in a few different spots. So I was just wondering why I was hearing two different things on that.
I hope we've clarified that with our presentation.
Yeah. And then the other question, probably more for the developers, is like how many lots are above 6,000, and like how many do they have that are like on the larger side? Like it says it goes from 4,000 to 9,000. How many are like 6,000, 7,500, 9,000 square foot? Because yeah, obviously 9,000 square foot lot, you have plenty of room to build an ADU on without any issues. And then one that's not part of this presentation, but keeps coming up for any type of development, probably will until we get it settled, is say we initiate this to move forward, how does our inclusionary zoning, inclusionary housing policies that you're currently working on affect this? So if we did pass inclusionary zoning and they're just an initiation phase, would they be have to comply with a inclusionary zone that we did when they do decide to build?
We have not completed the inclusionary housing study yet, and so we have not come to council to get direction to prepare an ordinance. Typically, an ordinance would apply to to a subdivision. So a proper project seeking a general plan amendment, rezoning, specific plan amendment, if they were to come in with a tentative map after the city perhaps adopted an inclusionary ordinance, they'd be subject to it. But then the council also has the opportunity in the inclusionary housing ordinance, should the council wish to have one, to specify which projects do or do not have to implement it. So it's a little bit unknown right now, Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you.
If you can answer, before I open up to the applicant in this and also the developer to answer some of the questions that the whole council is saying, that way it makes it easier. I believe in the staff report and maybe some of the discussion here is this property was sold to the school from the developer to Kairos. And do you recall if in the original council presentation, if you can recall going through this, was there a reason why the Vacaville Unified School District didn't take a position to build an elementary or a junior high school, and where it led to Kairos to actually purchase it?
That detail was not fleshed out during the discussion.
All right, I appreciate that. I do believe, though, that there were some other comments on that, but I'll save my comments till later. I'm going to go ahead and ask either the applicant or the developer if you wanted to come forward to answer a few of those questions. And then from there, I will open it up to the public for comment.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, staff, for the thoughtful review and for the recommendation. A lot of those were technical questions about density and developers, so I will hand it off to Bill for those. But if you have any specific questions, I think Councilman Wiley had one about school.
Why don't we start with that, since you're standing there, about the school, where it came from. And I do recall if you can answer any questions as far as where the funding comes from. And with that, it also comes with, there's a why behind all this from your perspective. what this pays for and what benefit it comes from. And if you could.
Sure, I'm happy to give you the history on that. So in 2018, the developer of Brighton Landing approached us, said that there was 11 acres that was available, zoned for school, and that the district and them were in conflict with each other, and they couldn't come to an agreement. And so they said it could only be occupied by another public school. You're the only other public school in town. So he said, make me an offer, and I made him an offer, and that was accepted, and we moved forward on the 11 acres. The other 16 acres was owned by Regis Homes. And so a couple years later, they approached us and said, hey, you own the northern side. Would you be interested in the southern side? It doesn't make sense to have, two school sites that's operated by VUSD and us, and they can speak to any conversations they had with VUSD about that. But we were interested in the additional 16 acres. At the time, we had just been operating off the Elm School campus. But as you know, we have a significant wait list, and so we were looking for opportunities that we can build and grow. And so we said, okay, let's get the land and see what we can do. And so we successfully built our Kairos Innovative Scholars campus, which many of you have been to and have been able to see the fruits of that labor. But because we own our own land, all of our funding comes directly from the state. We are a public school. There's lots of myths out there that we're a private school. We are not. We are a public school, so we receive public school funding, and that money comes directly from the state. With that, we have to manage those funds well, but we don't get the opportunity to do district bond measures or receive different types of funds that maybe districts can get to build facilities. This is Kairos owned, Kairos built, Kairos operated. And so we started to look at creative options for how we can utilize the 27 acres. To Councilman Wiley's question about is it an unusually large lot? Just for a frame of reference, I have nothing to do with them, but Buckingham operated in an industrial park for 30 years as a charter school. As a charter school throughout the state of California, they can operate in churches, they can operate in storefronts. There's a lot of creativity. So from our standpoint, it is an unusually large lot from a charter school standpoint of, I don't know anyone with 27 acres, and with all my connections in the state, they're all envious of 27 acres. But in our master plan and designing of future phases of Kairos, including the high school and a future K-8, we found that we can probably operate on a 15 acre, leaving the additional land that is available. And so what do we do with that land? Do we grow pumpkins on it? Do we do ball fields? And so originally our plan when we bought the land from the developer was to try to find a way to do teacher housing. So with that, there's some restrictions there's some flexibilities that districts have been given by the state of California, but not charter schools. We were carved out of that. So we tried to figure out different ways, but what we realized is that teachers are not a protected class. And so we were not able to carve that specific part out. But if we can try to develop some homes that are in our neighborhood, that are consistent with the neighborhood that is in there, that will generate income that will help us build a gymnasium, which ultimately we're a school that's focuses community service and community partnerships. So out of this, we have a firm commitment through an MOU with the developer that any proceeds from this will go directly towards a gymnasium, which our commitment is to work with the city and the community so that everyone can benefit, whether they're in that neighborhood, they're on that part of Leisure Town, and it fits in with our mission and vision as an organization of being a community service. So a lot of information. I don't know if I missed any of those points, but I'm happy to keep answering questions.
Since you're up here, if there are any questions, I'll go ahead and entertain them now. Councilmember Stockton?
Yes. You said you are a public school, right?
Correct.
Did you have to get approval from any sort of trustee group to be able to operate this high school?
Yes. So I am the superintendent CEO of Kairos Public Schools. So first I had to get my own board's approval that we wanted to operate the high school. So we have our own board of directors. Secondly, as a charter school, we are authorized by the Vacaville Unified School District. We operate autonomously from them, but the state structure of charter schools is you have to be approved by a local educational agency, which could be a school district, it could be the county. It used to be the state, but now it's either the county office of education or the local school district. We've been authorized by the local school district, Vacaville Unified School District, since 2013.
Now, were there any conditions like connected with that approval, specifically those that might address making sure that families from a variety of diverse backgrounds have access to your school and not just the people who live directly next to you?
Yeah, so in our recent amendment to our charter, which was to add the high school, through that, we had some negotiations with the district that there was a desire to see us become more and more diverse. And so in 2018, when we got our renewal, because charters have to be renewed every 5 years by the school district. In 2018, we added a 1 mile boundary preference to our Elm Street campus, the only one we owned at the time. So we wanted to become a neighborhood school. Elm campus is located in more of a low income neighborhood. When we bought the land in Brighton Landing, that 1 mile preference applied, but it didn't necessarily serve the same needs of trying to get more diverse student body in there and more students who may be socioeconomically disadvantaged. So in this restructuring that we did in December of 2023, we specifically are giving a preference in our lottery for families that qualify for free and reduced lunch or are considered socioeconomically disadvantaged.
So anyone can go to your school, correct?
We're able to accept students from anywhere in Solano County.
You use that protocol to determine who gets in and who gets out, that lottery system?
Correct. It's a public lottery. We live stream it on YouTube. We send everyone, here's your number. It's streamed live that you can see. Anyone could apply and it's public for everyone to see. And you can go on YouTube and watch results for the last several years.
And then the potential rezoning and sale of this property for this development would go toward a gym that would provide services for all of these kids that attend this high school. Would it also provide services for the kids at Elm to be able to utilize it as well?
Correct. It would provide for all Kairos public schools. We have middle school sports. Right now, we don't have a gymnasium to use. The city is gracious to let us rent the Duke when that's available, but we're having to use private church facilities. Sometimes we get to use district facilities. And as we continue to grow out, again, we just opened our high school. They're moving into their new classrooms that the city worked really hard with us on next Tuesday. So I encourage you guys to all come, but they're going to be developing sports. We're being voted on with CIF sports in October. So out of that comes more and more sports, more and more athletes, and we need a place where they're able to do their sports. And this will serve all of Kairos, middle school and high school, but we wanted to open it up even broader because there is no public facilities on that side of town, that anyone on that side of town that would normally have to travel to the Duke Center or other places might be able to just go to the neighborhood that's closer by and be able to have access to a gymnasium.
Which means that they don't have to necessarily be involved with or go to your school. It could be Parks and Rec or something like, is that what you're telling me?
That's the goal. That's the plan.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Councilmember Chapman?
Thank you. Good evening. Okay, you were stating, you were sharing information about how you become a charter school. And I was involved when Buckingham was first chartered here. I'm very familiar with the criteria that established. The thing about Kairos, I have 3 questions. 1, is there another school charter school that you are aware of that operates on their own property?
So one of the models that we used for our high school is Core Butte in Chico, and they operate on their own high school property.
They purchased the property and built the school?
Built their own building, yes.
Okay, and who was that?
Core Butte Charter School in Chico. Core, C-O-R-E, Butte, B-U-T-T-E, Charter School.
Okay. They're located here in California?
Chico, California.
In Chico. Okay, thank you. And then starting out as a charter school, the school district provided you space to hold to operate your school.
Yes,
And
we
that
have a
was at
long-term
Elm.
lease with our Elm Street campus, which is owned by VUSD.
Right. So that is the Vacaville Unified School District property, and they provided you that space to operate the charter school that they approved on your behalf.
Yes.
All right. So now you have you decided to purchase property and build a school. Is that and what's coming to mind only this evening is that you're actually going to become a quasi-private school being paid by public funds to operate according to your own guidelines. And when you mention your faculty, the teachers, yes, many of the teachers that might have changed through the years, but you can, I can say, okay, I have people that support my vision of this charter school. Okay, there are teachers that are certified, credentialed by the state. Are all your teachers credentialed by the state?
Yeah, in 2019, I believe it was, well, it might have been a little bit earlier, it might have been 2017, under Governor Brown, he signed 1505, AB 1505, which required all charter schools to have credentialed teachers for all subject areas.
Okay, so a few minutes ago, I believe I'm correct in stating that you said that your teachers are not protected. So it's that they're
Not
not
protected, meaning that, and there was a bill, and I'm sure that Greg has it memorized, AB something, that provided that school districts that own their own property have the flexibility to create housing on it. Charter schools were not included in that law. So we cannot do teacher housing on our land alone under the same flexibilities that school districts have. And maybe Councilman Ritchie can
It's okay.
speak to the exact
I
law.
misunderstood. I apologize. When you mentioned about the teachers.
If I could just mention, we're not a quasi-private school. We are a public school who receives dollars the same way a school district gets by people paying their taxes.
Yes, you're still receiving dollars by the state and not by the school district now, correct?
Correct. Our funding comes directly from the state. So in a traditional model of an elementary neighborhood school, the money goes from the state to the school district to the elementary school. In our model, the money comes straight from the state to Kairos Public Schools.
Okay. In the future, will you have to be certified by the state instead of renewing your contract with Vacaville Unified School District? Will you now have to be have it renewed by the state?
The same law, AB 1505 in 2019, removed the state's authority to grant charter schools. So it made it to where you can only be approved by local education agencies, as in a school district or a county office of education.
And only ask that because with you receiving your funding directly from the state and not the school district, that's why I was.
Yeah, the state of California is not in the business of overseeing charter schools anymore. They've handed that off to the county and the local school districts.
Right. Those are the questions I have right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, nothing to do really with the housing, but for your school sites and with your radius and all the different development that's going in, because like I know a lot of the housing is not even put in yet around the school site. Do you have a appropriate amount of room for expansion if you need? Like if the demand goes higher, can you expand on the current lot you have, like even with selling or developing the properties?
So in our current Kairos Innovative Scholars Program that's there right now, we're serving 225 students. That program has a wait list of 200 students. In our new high school, we're started small, so there's 70 students in that model. As you guys are probably aware, we've talked about before, there's over 1,000 students on the wait list across all of our academies. That includes Elm Campus and our Innovative Scholars Program. So We have we have our current site there. We have plans to add a high school, and then there's also plans to build a K-8. That is much more expensive. The high school is actually cheaper in our model because it's a flex-based hybrid workforce model, similar to what our Innovative Scholars program is. So it's cheaper to build a building for that one than a traditional K-8. But on our master plan of future phases that include ball fields and everything else, we have plenty of room based on if we were to give up the 12 acres and keep our 11 plus the 3.65.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the questions I think right now for you. That's very helpful. Did you have another question?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, so I'm
Thank
here all
you.
day.
Okay. How are you going to, how will the students be transported to Kairos
At the new facility?
at the new facility?
So they're already being transported out there. And actually, that was a cool partnership that we did with the city and the direct ride program. I actually just got a new stack of cards, I think a week or so ago. And so our high school students, because you have to be 13 or older, are actually already participating in that direct ride program, which was, again, part of our intention is there's not a lot of low income neighborhoods in that area, but we want to be able to have students have access. So we created that partnership with the city, which I believe VUSD also is doing now. And so that's one way that students are doing that. We also have students that are riding their bikes or skateboards. We have parents that are carpooling. We have very active parents who are willing to get involved. They start more Facebook groups than I ever want to be a part of. And then they figure out the rides and get the students there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I know there's some development questions from Councilmember Silva and others, so. But you've heard a lot of the questions, and maybe you can start with answering some of those questions.
Bill Hartman, Regis Homes. We're not only the master developer of Roberts Ranch, but also our firm was involved with the development of the Brighton Landing site as well. Did all the entitlements and did most of the backbone infrastructure for Brighton Landing as well. Let me address a couple of the questions that I remember, and then you ask me more questions. And I'll on some of what Jared talked about. In the entitlements that you have in the development agreement for both Brighton Landing and for Roberts Ranch, there was a requirement to provide access for this Unified School District to acquire the property within a certain time period. And in both cases, the Unified School District chose not to acquire them. And we had plenty of opportunity. We talked to them several times on Roberts Ranch specifically. I don't really recall, Brighton Landing was a long time ago, but I don't remember that one exactly. But we did have conversation with them, and they chose, there was no need for them to have it. So that's when, after that is when Kairos people approached the Brighton Landing, which we were not involved with, but then eventually approached us to acquire the property for their needs. We talk a little bit about the density issue that several of you have raised. It is a challenge on those lots. The 6,000 square foot requirement in the specific plan was important because the lot needs to be a certain size in order to accommodate the ADUs, which typically you can either put on top of a garage or you extend the footprint on the building. And that's what most of the builders have done, specifically Village B. They did a lot of single story units, so they extended that out. So it requires a certain size lot. Now you can do them on top of a garage, and I've got some ideas on how you could do that within certain lots within the project, within the lot sizes that we've proposed in this application. But there's only a few lots where you could use the extended type footprint on a single story unit. There's only maybe there's 6 or 7 of those lots. Now there may be an opportunity to do it on some of the other small lots. But as Councilmember Wiley brought up, the difficulty with ADUs when you're trying to do them in a new home production community is that it adds a lot of costs. So are you then defeating, by adding ADUs, are you really defeating the purpose of trying to create more attainable housing, you're using smaller lots, you're trying to do more attainable housing by design. So are you defeating that purpose? In some cases, families are trying to do multi-generation families, and then they're willing to spend the extra cost to do that on a lot. So we give them the option. But if you're going to force that to be done on so many lots, I think in some respects you defeat the purpose of trying to do more attainable housing by doing affordability by design. So those are the questions. I think I covered most of your questions. If there were some specific ones I missed, Councilman Sylvan.
So thank you. So here's without going into too much comments, there's people at Opportunity House that are looking for a place. They're ready to graduate. We don't have places for them to go. And so while it's not in the purview for Kairos to provide subsidized or affordable housing or anything to that matter, it is within the purview of us as a city council. And we are under no obligation to change any zoning that we've already approved, right? So in this particular situation, we have a community partner that services the well-being of our kids. And I know a lot of folks who benefit from Kairos, graduated there. Indirectly, my own family benefits from accessing one of their facilities currently through an enrichment program. It has nothing to do directly tied to their program. So all to me is outside really the purview of us as a council. The Vacaville Unified School District approved it. You know, all the questions about that, like whether I personally have questions, concern, and never got clear answers the past 6 years. It's at where it's at. Going back to what's in our purview, one of the issues is, so if we talk about if ADA is a tool to help increase access to housing, right? My question is, I actually wrote it down to be more specific, so give me a minute here. If a lesser density allowed for more ADUs, could we also look into a higher density that will allow for ADUs? On top of that, with that higher density, would your group be open to actually creating blueprints for like 3 or 4 different versions of ADUs that can be easily implemented by the homeowners at a future use, or those blueprints can actually be accessible to the public as a whole? So that way they can save the cost on that it would take to generate those blueprints. To me, that's a way for us to still be able to address what is in our purview of how we help support our homeowners while also helping support increased access to housing.
To answer your question, yeah, they can. A builder can design it. Our process will be simply to get the map and then sell it like we have in Roberts Ranch to a home builder, a national home builder. Can they do that? Yeah, I've done that before in other projects where we design houses that could implement add-ons that you could do later with floor plans and within the design. So that's a possibility to do that. And then they could build a base house and then you could add on to it. It's a little more challenging on a small lot because you typically have to build it on top of a garage, which then is a much more expensive process than building it all at once. But yeah, it can be done.
But currently there's no houses around that particular lot. Is that correct?
Houses around what particular?
The lot that's in question.
The 16 acre, the 12 and a half acres?
Yes.
If Albert, if you bring it up on, there's plenty, there's no houses to the west of that because that's in phase 3. The housing there is to the south. You can see that's Village B. That was in phase 1. Villages E, they're building houses on that one right now.
Yes, sir.
This is an older picture. F, G, and H has been sold, and that they're building the infrastructure right now. I, J, and K are in phase 3, and we still own that.
So how challenging would it be to do a new map, essentially to tie parcel M into one of those neighboring developments that would be more favorable towards, not to overspeak, but I guess my.
I know, to answer your question, I no longer own, or not me, but the organization no longer owns F, G, and H. So I don't have any control over that. And I, J, and K, now you're talking about changing a whole specific plan, and that's a much bigger, in terms of incorporating lots. Those lots have already been designed. They're
just lines, bud.
Huh?
We just draw new lines.
No, it's not that easy.
We make it harder.
Tell you how much work all these lots have already been submitted for improvement plans and all those things. So there's a lot of time and effort that's gone into phase 3 as well at this
Okay,
point.
I just want to clarify, I didn't misunderstand something you mentioned. Are you, so I'll reframe it. So as a developer, representative developer, are you guys open to also pursuing a slightly higher density to accommodate ADU implementation in a future as part of this process? Because here's a really relatively.
Well, parcel M would be the last parcel within Roberts Ranch. So.
I'm sorry, the density, so the proposal is low density for parcel M, just referring to the map.
Correct.
Right?
Low, medium?
I'm sorry, low, medium density. I apologize. Thank you, guys. The current proposal is low, medium density. Would you also be open to looking into medium density to look into the feasibility and the plans as part of this process?
On parcel M?
Yes, sir.
No.
Why not?
Because it's not consistent with the commitments I made to all the builders, and an extension of that is to all the buyers who already bought in there.
Yeah, but like we just say, hey, Mike was giving me a hard time. Just say Mike was giving me a hard time.
Well, look at, when we developed this, we made a commitment to the council at the time that this was going to, a lot of the lots to the north in Brighton Landing were smaller lots. We made a commitment to that council that we were going to build bigger lots here. And that's the way this has all been presented to the builders and by extension to all of their buyers. And so we're not going to change the overall feel of that project for
We have,
Roberts Ranch.
we said it was supposed to be a school, so we've already kind of opened that door,
I understand.
Yeah.
But that was a school.
And things change all the time.
I understand. But you asked me a question, I gave you an answer.
I have a hard time, I just don't see how we can, I'm always trying to understand from this side of it when developers say, hey, it doesn't pencil out, like why, right? And so if the goal is, if the goal is to find that win-win, to me, that's the win-win. Kairos gets what they need, developer gets their parcels, homeowners gets the opportunity to create an additional wealth through their investment, and then that can even be additional rental units to people who may need it, or their own family that just needs housing, so.
Councilmember Chapman.
Thank you. Okay, I wrote a little script here, make sure I get my thought out. Okay, homeowners purchased, the present homeowners in the area, they purchased their homes, and I've only spoken with a couple stating that they were expecting a school on the site that's being discussed. You just stated, no, forget I just said, you just stated. I'm going to state that you don't want moderate to moderate high density on that property. You just made mention of that you wouldn't approve of that based upon the discussion you've had with other builders. Yet Kairos is interested in busing students to meet their enrollment, the changes to their plan, their master plan. But yet,
What?
your emissions low. No, when you were up here, you made mention of the question I posed to you, I inquired about how students would get to Kairos. And you made mention that in 2021 or 23, you made a revision to your master plan.
To our charter petition, yes.
Your charter permit, yes.
To provide a higher weighted lottery preference in our admissions lottery to students who qualify for socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Right, okay. So then to get them there, they're gonna ride the skateboard, skates, bike, or they'll be bussed in, correct? I mean, well, don't answer that. So one of the conversations or one of the comments I've made in the past in regards to developments taking place is that we are in desperate need of moderate to moderate high density housing. And it's not that I'm not looking to hold you hostage for, to have that take place, come to fruition. Yet, I believe it was the comment of some of my colleagues here as well, that we are serious about future developments, which you're falling into that, based upon you want to change the zoning in the area.
What I'd like to do is I still have to open up to questions from the public, and so I'm trying to really afford everyone to ask the specific questions so that we can get there. That's all.
Absolutely.
Because it sounds like I know it's a feeling that you want to share, but I'm trying to get to the questions.
You don't have to, I know, I'm with you, okay?
Okay.
Just, yes.
Any more questions for the developer? Councilmember Wiley.
I have 3 specific questions, one to the city. If we were to approve this tonight, what's the timeline for seeing houses on that property? So it's between both of them. So you have to have the general plan amendment and do all that, which could take years. And then, so can you give me a ballpark figure?
So the developer at the last meeting mentioned an approximate timeline from the time of getting an approval to selling the property to actually building houses. If the developer is available to recite that, I thought that was probably a good reference time frame. Was something around 2 years or 2.5 years from the entire entitlement process to actually homes being built on there.
Answer that? So much of it is depending on how fast we can get it through the whole process, and based upon what we expect it to happen, we're hopeful that we can get the entitlements done within 18 months, around 18 months, maybe 2 years. That's kind of how the process goes. Maybe we can get it faster depending on, it really depends on the environmental document, which are things that we have to go through as if we get through this merit hearing. And then it takes about a year to implement them, to get all the plans done and everything ready to go. And after that, it takes about, could take as much as a year to get the roads put in and the houses started, first delivery houses. So, it's probably 3.5 at a minimum before you close on the first house.
All right. But then like Kairos, so the developer would pay Kairos, so they would, after it's all approved, so then they don't have to wait to start their gym and their stuff, right?
They don't have, it's not dependent on the delivery of the houses. It's only dependent on being able to have the property ready to sell.
To change hands.
Change hands so that we generate, with the sale, we generate funds that they need to do what they're trying to do for the community.
And then second, easy question. So you said you want to diversify with socioeconomic, but then you keep talking about a lottery. So is somehow those numbers weighted more if they're in the socioeconomic group that has free and reduced lunch?
Correct. The state of California requires you to have a lottery for a charter school if you have more students that want to attend it than you have space for. So with that, we added a higher lottery preference for students who qualify for socioeconomically disadvantaged than a student who just resides in Vacaville and doesn't meet that qualification.
Okay. And is there also something like with someone that has special needs, or not necessarily? Is it just socioeconomic?
That would be discriminatory if we provided that. So with socioeconomically disadvantaged, they're not providing us anything that has to do with their disability or anything like that. So the law is very specific on what you can make a lottery preference, and providing students with disabilities is not a legal option.
Okay. And then for either one of you, there's good reasons for Kairos to want this to happen, and there's good reasons for the developer to want this to happen. But tell me, at the 2 best reasons for Vacaville, what do we get from it other than occasional use of a gym?
So here's the thing. We're committed as Kairos Public Schools. We developed a school that's community service driven, that's community focus driven, and we believe that we're building a pipeline for generations to build the economic prosperity of this community. Having access to a gym, sports, different recreational facilities provides all kinds of different skill sets, soft skills, we call them in the educational world that will be able to help combine with all of our workforce development and entrepreneurial things that we're doing. You guys just listened to a presentation from the Chamber of Commerce. Our students are the pipeline that's going to be able to do that. So get this specific thing, gets us a gymnasium, continues to help bring access to the community. We want to be a partner and let the community use it, but ultimately you're investing in students and being able to have access to recreational facilities.
And as a retired public school teacher, that's what all of our schools are trying to do too. So I didn't know if there was anything other than that. So, okay, thanks.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, trying to go back to some specific questions like what I asked earlier is how many lots that are tentatively planned that are over 6,000 square foot in parcel M? Because I know it range from 4,000 to 9,000. How many do you have that's over 6,000 that you have potentially planned for it?
Maybe Alan can answer that question. He's a civil engineer on the.
Hi, Alan Haddix, Haddix Consulting Engineers. I'm the project civil for Roberts Ranch and have extensive background with Brighton Landing as well. I want to emphasize, even though there is a layout on that project, there is no layout being proposed with what we're asking you to consider. That's the entitlement process. All that we're doing at this point is asking permission to start that process. But we, Councilman Silva, you were mentioning several times about, is there an opportunity to increase the density so that you can accommodate an ADU? Those are kind of opposite directions. The higher the density, the less room there is to accommodate an ADU, but the higher the density, the more, I'm not going to say affordable, but in the terms of what affordable housing is, but relative to development, if you build a house on a 4,000 square foot lot, it's not going to cost as much as if you build it on a 7,000 square foot lot. So relative to what is currently developing in Roberts Ranch and planned for in Roberts Ranch, these lots are in the range of the smallest or a little bit smaller than anything else proposed at Roberts Ranch. So to get even the low medium density, you're looking at lots that are in the 4,000 to 4,500 square feet range. So we're far from the 6,000 square foot trigger that is a component of the Roberts Ranch specific plan. As lots get larger, there are ways that you can, in that window, you're at a townhome borderline apartment type development. So even having something that are smaller lots that have any consistency with the development as it was master planned, we're going to have lots that have to be specifically, I don't want to overcommit what can be done. And I understand the importance of what your concerns are. I'm a longtime Vacaville resident. Those are concerns of mine as well. My youngest son is in the process of buying a house and he's moving to Dixon. I'm still glad that he's nearby, but I have a strong personal desire to have affordable houses in Vacaville, but we have to appreciate the fact that there are developers that have spent a lot of money developing and home buyers that have purchased homes in a subdivision with a particular character, and it just wouldn't be appropriate to try and put in a high density development at this point. From a master planning standpoint, those sorts of things are necessary, but they have to be done in a master plan development at the beginning as the planning is happening. That way, every developer and every homeowner, as they're moving in, understands what their community is going to consist of. And we want to have something that is appropriate, but we're trying with the density that we're proposing. But we can't go to a density higher than that and still be, respect the commitments that were made in developing this master planned project.
Thank you. Nope.
One question.
Yeah, one last question.
I have a feeling how you guys are going to answer this, but how much do we expect, about now, estimated, rough ball figure, how much would these particular units be on the market for?
It's almost impossible
Gotta
to
give me
say
something,
because
man.
we're 3-4 years, who knows what the cost and inflation is going to go. But you have examples of what would typically be right up in Brighton Landing, because there are a lot of the villages just above in Brighton Landing on the south side that are 50 by 80 size lots. So those houses developed by Meritage, I think, and some of those are lots. So give you an indication. I don't know off the top of my head what those were selling for, but generally they're probably, I'm guessing they're probably 10-15% less than what the houses are selling for on Village E, and certainly quite a bit less than what's currently selling on Village C and Village L, because those are much bigger lots. That's about as good an answer as I can give you. I can't project what the future is going to be, but so to give you a number would be,
Yeah, so that's where always is very complex to me, because developers are always comfortable saying, hey, it's not going to pencil out, it's not going to work. And here we're saying it's not going to match. The reason why it's not that, it's not going to match the aesthetics of the surrounding area, and then price points are going to change. But I just find it hard to believe that there's no general number that can be thrown out, or even a range, minimum to high, that you kind of mentioned.
I think my response is, in comparison to lots, say on Village F or Village E, which are larger lots, my guess is if you had a house that was for sale, a new home that was for sale on Village F, that the house on the size lot that we have in our schematic, which is obviously not approved, but would be 15%, 15% less than what they would sell a house for. They typically are going to be smaller houses, number one, but same size house, maybe.
And I'm sorry, you don't have like a general number for that?
Well,
correct. Do you know?
Again, some of you guys might know.
Is it okay if I look up on Zillow? Is that
Houses are
allowed?
selling for out there.
I mean, we've done.
I think affordability.
Yeah, I think this is for the purpose of what we're trying to get to, because this is a request for a GPA, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds of this.
Understand.
I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public for their comments. So any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I hope that the council would take to heart, if this is a change of zoning, take to heart the city staff's recommendation that they would like to consider medium density housing and some other options as far as the buildings that will be built. And if they are something like a townhouse, perhaps when I'm retiring without a husband, I would like to buy there, but I wouldn't want a 2,500 square foot house. Maybe something smaller would be delightful. Thank you very much for considering it.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak? And if you do, please come forward or prepare to speak. So.
My name is Jessica Carvalho. I wish that my husband was here because he's actually a coach in the community. He coaches all the sports all year round. He's actually the Kairos Middle School basketball coach as well. And one of the struggles that I saw for him, I know, is we don't have a facility. And the kids at Kairos are just as deserving as any other kid in the community to have a facility to play sports at. We know what a positive outlet sports can be for kids in all walks of life. But this is what I wrote to have that I have to say about it. I'm a mother of 3 multi-sport athletes in this community, and I'm part of the Kairos community as well. My oldest is 13 years old and began his sports journey at 5 with City League T-ball. We play city basketball, Kairos Middle School basketball, rec soccer, comp soccer, Little League baseball, flag football, softball, have done gymnastics through the city ballet, etc. The list goes on. We are a sports family. Vacaville is a city of over 100,000 people. As a family who values sports and what they teach our children as a whole, resilience, time management, work ethic, team mentality, sacrifice, and so on, it has been wild to me to only have the Georgia Duke Center and the Skate Center locations for things like basketball. At the Duke, we are now told the teams and families cannot come in until their game starts and must stand outside because there simply isn't enough room. They stack games back to back, and as Mr. Ritchie can attest to, creates chaos. We're shifting chairs as quickly as possible when they multi-sports games in to be able to watch our kids play on the court. It's becoming a non-functional situation and it actually creates a lot of tension at the facility. There is such a need for another sports facility in the city of Vacaville, it is beyond apparent. In the community, you hear the frustrations from parents and citizens. Why does the city keep allowing more neighborhoods to be built without new schools? Kairos built a new school. We are adding more people. Why are we adding more people to our city when we can't accommodate the ones that are already here? Why are families driving out of town for their kids to play sports? We have a great need that can be met by allowing Kairos to sell the land and use those funds towards a new sports facility. Not only one that they need for their students who deserve such amenities, but one that can be used by the entire community. This is a win all around. From our youth having another outlet to thrive and grow, to the revenue that this even brings to this side of town. There is no sports complex on this side of town, and it's really unacceptable in a city this large. This sports facility would be one that could be utilized and enjoyed for generations to come. So I think that your vote to provide better for our youth matters. The constituents are speaking. I love to hear our voice. The families need it, the parents need it, the kids need it. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the youth of Vacaville and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? And what I would ask, anyone else who wants to speak, I'd ask you to line up because that way we can just move through the public comment portion of this. Good evening.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions that were based on other questions that other people asked. And, one of those was, what about the people who bought in this community and were expecting a school? There are other communities in Vacaville where people have bought and have been promised schools by developers, maybe not exactly by the school district, but where they're still, 30 years later waiting for schools like North Village, for example. But I think that the question that I had was, if in this case we had Vacaville Unified allowing the time to lapse, and they didn't agree to purchase the land because it's not given to them, it's something they have to purchase, and they didn't, and Kairos didn't step in and say, hey, we'll purchase that land. What happens to the land? Does it stay zoned as a school forever, or does the developer at that point get to come back in at some point in time and say, no schools are interested, we've offered it to the district, and therefore, we want to bring this back as usable land. I believe there's something kind of like that going on in North Village right now, so it's not exactly a novel situation that we're dealing with here. But I think that that's, one of the questions is Kairos actually put a school there where no one else was. And that's important because we need schools. I would benefit from a school in the North Village area, but there isn't one there. Love to see one end up there. Any help you guys can do with that would be great. So that was just kind of that, not holding the rezoning hostage over the medium density issue. If you have already approved this particular site to be a site, everything except parcel M as not medium density, it does feel like, that's maybe something that you're holding hostage if you're saying, hey, you guys have already design to this community. You've already made commitments to your developers. All of the people who've bought there have been not only told that there's going to be a school, but there's also going to be, this certain, density and home value and resale value. And then you're like, well, we'll do that if you will go to a high density or a medium density. Fairness to the people who've bought there, that doesn't seem very fair. So I hope you guys follow the recommendations from your planning department and go ahead and approve the request. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this item. Bring it back to the council for any discussion or comments before we will move on the item. Councilmember Chapman? Do you have something to say?
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I just wanted to jump in real quick because a lot of great conversation tonight about this particular subject. And I hope everyone understands that this is a big discretionary item for our community. And so I hear the one side that certainly makes a lot of sense and the reasons why the developer team is suggesting that there's limitations on what they can do out there with that particular property. And I certainly understand the councilor's perspective because as has been shared, we've been talking about housing and all the different needs that we have for a while now, going into our housing element update and so forth. So one of the things that while there may not be a perfect solution tonight, and it was brought up earlier, is the subject of inclusionary housing, okay? The developer mentioned that it's probably going to be greater than 3 years or so to get to that point where they're in, building product. My guess is backing out of that you're looking at, 18 months to 24 months before you're actually in, while still in the entitlement process. My goal is that we will have something in front of the council before that time frame related to inclusionary housing. And so while there might be a solution here in that process, because while there may not be an opportunity, and it hasn't been decided here yet, and it probably won't be decided here tonight as far as the final product, but while there may or may not be an opportunity for affordable housing on that particular site, the whole goal of the inclusionary housing ordinance is to have other developers citywide contribute to the solution of the need that we have in our community. So while it may not be directly, it can be indirectly through the payment of an inclusionary housing fee or some other type of mechanism that we have outlined to the council before when we first introduced that topic to you. So what I'm trying to suggest is that this conversation isn't over and that there still may be an opportunity going forward that a future developer on this site could help contribute to that bigger picture solution at a future date. Because this project, if you do go forward, will likely require a specific plan amendment and a development agreement amendment. And those are vehicles that we can use absolutely to require those kind of provisions that they participate in going forward at a future date. So, I just want to make sure that you don't feel that it's all or nothing right here, right now. But there is opportunities going forward to have a bigger conversation about that subject where they are participating in that bigger need that I hear you talking about up there. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Thank you for the additional comments. Councilmember Chapman?
Thank you. The last time we met, there were questions that you jotted down and took away, and I think you had a slide this evening. Were all of our concerns on that list addressed?
Yes, in the report.
Okay. And I believe Council Member Silva had asked a question about pricing of homes, and by chance, either one of you have an idea?
We don't keep track of home prices. I may or may not have peeked at Redfin, but that's just me glancing at an app quickly. It's not the same thing as giving you a really substantive answer. What the developer said in general tracks that the smaller lots are going to sell for less, the larger lots are going to sell for more, but that's still unfortunately not about price points.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff coming up regarding property. I recently attended a planning commission meeting, which had an appeal for that essentially came down to private property owner rights and what they can do with their land. Same thing with this. Like, I believe that they own the land and they're trying to do something good for the community overall, and they should be able to develop the land and do what they can with it, especially if we do get some benefit out of it. I don't know if anybody else has any questions on there. Otherwise, I was going to make a motion.
I'll come back to you on the motion.
Okay.
And then you can. Vice Mayor Ritchie.
Well, Jason took the words out of my mouth. Thank you, our city manager, Aaron Mayor, which kind of really kind of summarizing what I said earlier, kind of go back full circle. The word commitment, I think, between Silva and Stockton were saying, we made a commitment to the city to make sure that when we go forth, we open up something as big as the Urban Reserve, that we're going to make sure we hold the developers accountable. We have an amazing team that's working right now with the city to make sure we have a master plan that will fit the inclusionary housing, that will fit the multi-housing options, that will bring forth the high density, low density, that will finally weave into communities so we don't have food deserts, commercial. There was a commitment made a long time ago to this community that people bought, that there would be a school and the houses would have a certain characteristics and standard. It's our job now to make sure the commitment going forth for the city as a whole, as we see developments around Vacaville, it fits exactly the passion that Silva's talking about, that we have different levels of housing. But for this development, the plan put forth is right. It's going to create a huge community benefit, and it's going to create the ability to develop the property, the highest best use of Kairos, and give the people who already own properties like type. I wanted to make a motion, but Jason beat me to it, so I will yield that. I'll second it, yeah, if it comes.
Well, thank you. Just lastly, this is actually a great conversation tonight. I appreciate us being able to really dive into the questions, because there's a lot of change here, and the reality is we're changing a zone for school. And the request is to make a general plan amendment to actually do something with a residual lot. It's a unique opportunity experience. No doubt that, Kairos is a public school. Kairos can't raise funds through a bond. Kairos does not get DIF funds to build a school. It's under the Unified School District who passed on this lot. And so there's a lot of history as to how do we get here. And the key is we're trying to achieve the concerns that Councilmember Silva is bringing up, and that is we need that the very thing that you tried to do, which was how to get the teacher housing. And so there's been a real commitment on your part trying to achieve this, and I know that there's been other opportunities and it's failed. So the desire to get there isn't wrong. It just isn't. The reality is I think it's not that long ago that we had the issues with Southtown. The idea of changing what's around and the pressure it puts on the community. Transportation to be in a school, well, if the school is bigger, it'd be even more. Creating density creates that change. But this is already an established development, even if there's not lots on there. So to the investors who have funded the front end of this, we would be saying, it would be, if we didn't approve this, we'd be telling them and telling you no, because we want something else. But I do appreciate, Mr. City Manager, the approach is there's funding sources in the future so that we can achieve our goals. And so it's not a binary choice tonight. It's the ability to allow a school district to be creative that cannot raise funds any other way and sees this as an opportunity. And it makes a lot of sense to add a community benefit with a gymnasium that even the city can use. And it's not wrong that the school district didn't build there. It's just part of our planning that says there's going to be a school site, and there's a lot of them around the city that are never going to be built on, which means if nobody does at some point, it could come back to just pure development. Here's an opportunity to get a benefit. We wouldn't have a school there had you not done what you've done, and so I commend Kairos for doing that. And so with that, I do believe that there's a real benefit, and sometimes it's hard because for some reason we're trying to squeeze something out of a deal. The reality is what we're really doing is we're getting something that we hadn't even anticipated. So there's such a benefit out of this. So I don't want us, even though we're trying to get to those things that we feel passionate about, not to lose sight of the real benefit here. And I think the benefit is felt by all of us have those ways that we can convey that. So that's just my thoughts. I just want to turn it back over to Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I'm trying to be pragmatic and looking at this just as what it is and not look at all the charter school opinions and everything regarding that. So what I'm going to do is make a motion to go with the staff's recommendation to initiate the general plan amendment for the low, medium density, because I know there's a lot of other steps. You guys have to do a lot of studies. There's going to be overlays that are going to be coming to us in the future, and that there's a lot of other steps that have to happen with this. And as the city manager mentioned, we are looking at inclusionary zoning, hopefully much sooner than later. And so with that, yeah, I'll make the motion for that.
The motion, and Vice Mayor seconds it. Roll call.
Councilmember Stockton? Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman? Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ritchie?
Yes.
Mayor Carley?
Yes. So thank you. Great conversation and discussion tonight, and there's still work to be done, but appreciate it and see where this takes us. All right, with that, we're going to move on to item 10, reports of the city manager.
Nothing tonight, given the fact that we have a couple of closed session items. I have nothing to report.
All right, well, we have the reports of the city council. There is one item that we have to do is a quick discussion before I turn it over for the discussion, is the appointment of the Cal Cities voting delegate. Is there anyone here that's going to Cal Cities? I know typically what happens is there potentially is something to vote on the final day. And so while I was the delegate last year, I think Vice Mayor, at the time you were Vice Mayor Wiley the year before or whenever, but you were a delegate.
Silva was, I've never been.
Okay. So it's just a matter of, you just have to commit to being available on that last day in case there is something to vote on. So.
You want to do it, Jeanette?
I will.
Just requires you to make sure you're there on the last day in the afternoon. Because some of us have flights to go down to and some people might come back.
I think my flight is later because
Okay.
I'll be busy, my brother. Long Beach, so.
Would you be willing to do it? Are you saying that you're available?
Oh, I'll be available to my brother.
Oh, to see his brother. So he's saying no. I don't know. I mean, I will be down there. I'm just saying if somebody wanted the opportunity to be part of the governing process. Okay, so.
Thank you.
So what do we need to vote on that or to just make the appointment to the city attorney? I don't think so. It's not anything other official than an association. All right, so you have that. So I appreciate that. You just have to register when you're down there that you're voting. Yeah, yeah, that's right. All right, so that's the only part that needed to be done other than any other council comments. So I'm going to go to Councilmember Stockton.
Very lively discussion tonight. I appreciate everybody's comments. I wanted to get back to the comments that we heard from the gentleman in the front row about the fire department's fleet. I mentioned it at the last meeting. I recognized that there was a minor problem, or I guess 3 ambulances. It sounds like it's much more significant than that. And I'm really concerned not only about their ability to respond and take care of people who are in crisis or their houses or properties are being threatened, but the medical stuff is scary to me. And the fact that we're having to pay for things that we're not going to get for 2 to 4 to 5 years is concerning. And that's in addition to the fact that we've got no air conditioning in these vehicles. I would like to make a motion that we agendize getting an update on the fleet with some options for the funding needed to get that started so that we can fund purchasing whatever vehicles we need, as well as some sort of plan to mitigate the maintenance issues that are happening right now. We can't have ambulances where there's no air conditioning, when we're transporting people, potentially medications, other things like that. So I would like to agendize for our next council meeting for the first business item that we get this fleet status update and that we have some recommendations on how we can fund ordering those vehicles or getting in the pipeline to order those vehicles and figure out how we're going to maintain what we have until we're able to replace it.
Okay. So there's going to be a second on this. So, Mr. City Manager,
at the next meeting,
do you have anything that you would be able to share or present or discuss at the next meeting, or is that appropriate time?
Well, I think it depends on the magnitude of how deep you want to go. I mean, I can give you some information to put the comments that you heard tonight in context about the plan that we already have in place. And, you know, I don't need to remind you about our budget deficit and everything. And we can certainly give you a quick update because, you know, some of the things that you heard tonight are accurate from the fleet report. But the other pieces that you ask about, we can certainly give you that. But if you're looking at, you know, evaluating the operational standards of the entire fleet, that's going to take more time because we're already writing the staff reports for next council meeting. So if you can help me out on what you're looking for.
I would like the council to understand, to know what this fleet study said, what our current status is. It sounded like we got a brief synopsis of the status right now, and to figure out if there's some sort of funding that we can do so that everything is getting more and more expensive, right? I mean, we waited how long to get a park, and it ended up costing us more and more money. So I think it is very fiscally wise for us to look at getting in the pipeline to order the equipment that we need to save people's lives. That's all I'm saying.
We're already doing that.
So what I would like to do, and I made a motion, I have 2 seconds, to agendize this for business item 1 for the next meeting, to go over the fleet study and to have recommendations on council options to fund or figure out like some sort of funding so that we can order these vehicles with what we need. Now, whether all of that is what we need right now, we can discuss that, but I want to have a discussion because I wasn't aware how bad it was. And I don't want somebody to die. I don't want somebody in a crisis, in a medical crisis, to have to when seconds matter, to have to wait for an ambulance to come from across town or from another city because we have 3 of them down. I cannot accept that. And I understand that it is a lot to ask. So if we can go over the fleet study that has already been conducted and we can get some recommendations on what funding is needed to order these vehicles or get in the waiting line, because it's going to take 2 to 5 years depending upon the vehicle. I think we need to know that. And so that's my motion, and I would appreciate.
So yeah, just to simplify it, go ahead.
So I'd be happy to give you what I can. I assure you that there's not a danger of losing life out there. So I would just caution about that. Okay. We have a plan. I wish I had a blank checkbook, because please keep in mind that the fire fleet, while it's very important to us, we are being very creative and innovative about trying to pre-purchase things, because to your point, a vehicle that used to take 2 years now takes 3 or 4 years. Okay. And so are you talking about investing monies now for something that's not deliverable for 4 years?
Yes.
Well, we are doing that. So we hear you. Okay. But keep in mind, please, that the fire department fleet is a portion of our 600 plus fleet. So, you know, we have challenges in the entire fleet. Okay.
And I'm not trying to minimize the complexity of what I'm asking.
I will be more than happy to give you what I can give you at the next meeting, and hopefully that suffices for what you're looking for.
Right. But I want to make sure that there is a actionable item for us to do something about it.
So what I would recommend is to come back with a report, and so that it's like other reports. It's helping us understand the implications of it based upon risk, based upon that we've heard in the past, if something's 2 to 3 years out and there's a price point that's going to create that risk if we don't have it. And I think we've done that before. So I think that would be good. So if there are recommendations, ultimately, we can make whatever recommendation that we want.
Well, I want to make sure
We just
that
need to
we
hear what
can.
it is.
So I just want my motion to be crystal clear that I want an update on the status of our fleet, what the plan is, and I want I want the ability that if we recognize that there is a need for funding to get in, to order these vehicles, that we have the ability to do that at this next meeting. We talk about it. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to wait a month and then wait that much longer. If we know now we have a problem, we need to fix it because this is what, this is what continues to happen with expenses of things going up and up and up. The longer we wait, the more it costs. And I refuse to accept that with life-saving fleet vehicles that get our public safety professionals where they need to be to save people's lives. That's it. We have to do better. We cannot have these things. We can't have 3 ambulances down. That's unacceptable. I don't think there's anybody up here that would say that's okay. And so to not have air conditioning in these vehicles, unacceptable. There's transporting people, for heat stroke. You got to have air conditioning in your ambulance. You're transporting medications. They got to be kept at a certain temperature. So there are some maintenance issues as well. So it's not just the status of the fleet. We got to figure out what are we going to do to maintain the quality of service that we expect to provide for the citizens of Vacaville. And it can't be having 3 ambulances down and 1 person working on it. So I look forward to hearing the plan, but I would like to make this motion and we can discuss it thoroughly at our next meeting on our first business item and have some actionable items that we can make decisions on as a council, knowing that we are deficit spending. I understand that, but I also recognize that this is very important. So we need to talk about it. We need to do a roll call?
Discussion.
You don't need to. You already have a second.
Oh, so we're good?
Yeah. The item will be on the next. That's just the ask. You can bring back a presentation. Clearly, the issue was with the fire department. We know that we have a whole fleet. My experience is that there is a rotating fleet process and sometimes priorities come and go. But if there is something specific that can be reported out, seeking direction, I think that's something.
I just want to make sure that my motion and my second means that this will be on the next agenda and that we will be able to vote on how to proceed. Is that motion and a second? I don't need to vote for that?
Discussion, please.
Well, this isn't a time for discussion. So he can put it on the agenda, but we can't have a discussion about an item because it's not on the agenda.
When there's a motion and a second, you open it up for discussion. That just means there are comments that can be made by the council.
As long, procedurally, but just not on the issue of that.
Discussion is on his motion. Yeah. Okay. And I hear you loud and clear. I'm just hearing, we're just hearing about this evening. And I think it's only fair that we ask the city manager to come back with a report and not require an action item. We just finished approving the budget for all the departments. And I can't recall off the top, they were very thorough with stating, giving the rationale for what they were asking for the budget this year. So with that said, I think it would allow, I think it's appropriate to allow the city manager to come back as the.
So I'm just going to say, to be clear, bringing back a discussion item where there's a report that can be shared out to the council, then becomes the ability for public comment and us to understand if there's a risk, if there's an opportunity. What that does is if there is a desire to bring something back so that staff understands what the council's intention is, so it kind of is, it's almost a 2-part. One is the presentation comes back, give us a report on the issues so we know what the issues are, and then that then opens up the opportunity to make a recommendation.
That's 2 meetings.
Right.
Well, I realize that, but what you're asking is staff to actually prioritize something that they don't know exactly what we're going to tell them. That's not getting feedback.
So if that's
giving direction.
So then if that is the suggestion that you're making, then what I would say is give us, then I'm fine with doing the presentation at the very next meeting. I want the action item at the very next one after that. I do not want to wait months and months and months to address this. The people deserve to know that they're going to have fire trucks and ambulances respond.
No, I completely agree with you. What I'm saying is it's a lot easier for them to bring back the presentation to give us an understanding of whatever the matrix report was so that we can have a discussion. And then they have the task of bringing that back to the next council meeting. Am I correct in that?
Well,
if the council
not-
chooses to do something.
So not to muddy the waters, but, you know, I'm crafting a staff report in my head as we're talking about this right now. But what I believe we can do is give you, you know, the findings of the recent fleet study. There are cost values in there. So I can tell you how much things are going to cost. I can't tell you where the money's coming from. But if you're asking me how that piece fits in with all the other costs of all the other fleet, I don't know if I have that readily available. So in my way of thinking, you know, before you make the big picture decision on if you are going to invest in one portion of the fleet, it would be advisable to know the condition of the other portions of the fleet. We'll see what we can bring you. I know I can bring you that piece that, you know, I shared, and we'll give you what we can in that short time frame. Because as I said, I'm already reviewing staff reports for next council agenda already, because that packet goes out a week ahead of time.
So will that have recommendations for actionable recommendations?
Well, Councilman, I'm going to give you the information. You get to make the action that you see fit as a council.
Okay, so we'll be able to do that.
Because we have already made our game plan. It's an operational thing. I understand, you know, your sensitivity to it. Trust me, as I said, it's not, you know, falling on deaf ears. If I had a bigger checkbook, we could do different things.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a game plan, and we are putting that in there. I will just tell you that we are allocating a total of $2.3 million to the fleet. That has been something that we've elevated slightly each year from prior years because of the recognition of that. And this is something I want to put out there now. You'll probably hear it again at the next meeting, is that when I got put in this position, one of the things that was important to me was to take a look at all of our operations. Because while I knew that there were a lot of challenges, we didn't have a quantitative value to that. So one of my practices has been from day one is to go ask our team out there and all the departments to identify what we call structural and foundational budget issues. You may recall that, seeing that on the past, you know, budget cycles. And so what we're doing is we're identifying those challenges. And while it doesn't mean that we're going to be able to fix all of them, we know about them. And so then we can start identifying priorities and investment opportunities in those. And so that's what we've been doing for the past 4 budgets, okay? What you heard tonight is, you know, $5.4 million to fix the fleet problem. Okay, well, that's more than double our fleet budget for the entire city fleet. I'll be happy to bring that back in more detail for you guys, and then you guys can make the decision on where you would like to go.
Okay.
Okay?
And no vote is needed. We can just put that. Okay.
We're good.
Do you have anything else?
No, I appreciate your support on that. I just, you know, we had a comment earlier about the aging population. We got people living in senior housing that really depend on our ambulance services daily to save their lives. We have a great police and firefighters here, but our firefighters can't help if they can't get there. So I don't know what the plan is with the mechanics that are taking care of it, but hopefully that can be addressed as well, because if we're not going to get these for 2 to 3 years, one person trying to fix all this stuff is.
And I would just say, if you can bring back any information on the ability to service the fleet.
Yeah.
So if there are, because sometimes one person may not be enough. Whatever it is, whatever the report is, I suspect you'll be able to inform the council. I mean, this would be very common to bring a report back to the council and potentially at this point seeking the council's direction.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, Councilmember Roberts.
There it is. Two things. The first is this weekend we have the downtown, is it the Shakedown with the car show? There's 8 bands across 3 stages downtown, and hopefully it'll be even busier than what we had this last Saturday with the market. It was awesome being down there. Second one, I know you've already been asked a lot of for staff. Would it be possible to bring back anything regarding inclusionary zoning before the end of the calendar year? Like I don't know, that's more Aaron's thing.
Well, so we're
because I know she mentioned we haven't had a specific request for an ordinance. That was what Aaron mentioned when we were talking about it.
right. So if you recall, the last step that we did is council gave us approval to move forward with hiring a consultant to come back and evaluate that. And so they're working through their scope of work. I can certainly check with Aaron and the consultant's schedule for, what's next on the horizon and where there may be an opportunity to bring something back to the council. And if there's, because I really got to look at that scope of work and see if it fits nicely in there with the timeline that you're requesting. I will just tell you that.
That's why I was asking for a few months out. So I know you guys have the consultant out, so it's more.
Yeah, so I mean, it will be something that we'll be actively working on. And of course, part of the deliverables in there was just to make sure that we have a very active, proactive, community engagement, and then also lots of conversations with council, because that is, a very important policy decision for the future of the city.
Mostly because I'm tired of having these conversations about affordable housing every time a developer comes to council for something. So if we get this knocked out, I see that's the only real way to fix it. So the sooner we get it done, the better. But I know we are waiting on a few things.
Yeah, we understand. That's why we're working on it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wiley.
I just wanted to say that I think last week there was a homeless roundtable, and a lot of people have spoken about wanting to have the city represented. So I was glad that the city manager was at the homeless roundtable. And this coming week, there is the update for the homeless, for the city's point of view. So that's open to the public as well at 4 o'clock on Thursday in the council chambers. And it was interesting this week. We had tonight the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. So this week we had the opening of the security public storage murals on 505. And it's really great to have that coming into town, and they see, the Vacaville sign and the biotech and the arts trail and the sunflower. So if you haven't seen that yet on 505, it's really pretty impressive, and it's great to have the businesses work with the city and have a welcoming picture. And also, I wanted to say that this coming weekend is Labor Day. And so I hope that everyone can support the labor in whatever way. There's a Labor Day breakfast on Monday that I'll be attending. But all of our labor across our city and other laborers we have in town, it's just wonderful to be able to have that day to recognize the contribution of labor in town. And then finally, I did go to the COV dunk tank, and second ball, I dunked our city manager. I was lucky.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this up. And just one comment. There was a comment I think that went to most of the council, and it was an item that was on consent, and it had to do with the sale of water. Sometimes it's hard to understand, and again, this went through in consent, so I just wanted to make a comment. The city's paying close attention to how we manage water. There's going to be more discussions about permanent conservation requirements, that even the city is going to have an unfunded mandate because of the state. But that said, the city also at times can purchase water, and other cities want to purchase water, and we sell water. And so there's benefits to offsetting costs. And in this particular case, that's one of the discussions that we had at prior council. So just so you know, sometimes we get feedback like, why am I having to conserve and then you're selling water? Well, water is a commodity, and we have a utilities department, and sometimes it is in the best interest to actually recoup money that otherwise you would lose. Sometimes it's in the millions of dollars. And so good business decisions were made. And so what we did is we gave staff permission to seek that out with no certain terms, but there was comments on it because it was on an item that went to consent. So sometimes it's hard to understand these details, but I appreciate, Justin, you and your commitment to making sure what's done right, using advice from our legal team and our city manager on that, because we are in a good place. We're paying very close attention to our water issue, but in this particular case, sometimes what you need to do is just put your surplus water on the open market because you can't keep it forever, and you might miss an opportunity to recover that kind of fund. So last thing I'll just say is just in my own life, I've had to deal with the passing of my father this week. And so I know some of us have felt different things at times, and you might say, well, why am I here? For no other reason than I was still in town for today. But it's just a reminder to all of us, we go about the business of our lives, and we often forget about what's really important. And so I appreciate the support that I've received from all of you on the council and from staff, and even the flowers to deliver to the house today. It just means a lot when you're going through difficult times, and everyone experiences different tragedies in their life, and this has just been a rough week, and so I appreciate all the support, and I wanted to pass that along. With that, we're going to go ahead and go into closed session. We have two litigation items and one on labor negotiations, and there'll be nothing to report out tonight. And so with that, good night, Vacaville.